Hey folks, Bill Schaefer here for Friday Night with Bill, and I appreciate all of you signing in. I see folks starting to check in now. Had a pretty good day today. Had an opportunity to go down to Mount Air, talk to a couple of folks, and then swung up to Creston and linked up with another good supporter there, Mike, in Creston, and then over to a small business owner, a A&M gun shop, Great Americans in there. Hi, Bill. Scott, actually. And pretty excited about having the opportunity to talk to you again tonight. Thought Tuesday night went splendidly. Had a full hour and a half of questions, and good evening, Jeff. And I really like this this format, the opportunity to talk directly to you, the opportunity for you to ask direct questions of me, and I look forward to answering more questions tonight. Hi, Kim. And Sandy, awesome. Sandy, I'm sure glad you're on tonight. Enjoyed our quick exchange today, and I always look forward to questions and clarity. And yeah, I'm stalling a little bit trying to. Hi, Rita, how are you? And well, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. I would much rather be coming to your little towns. John, it's an honor to have you signing in all the time. Thank you. I would much rather be walking through the little towns like I was doing last fall, and then I started again in the spring. Hi, Kevin. And was very disappointed when the campgrounds got shut down. That's my preferred technique, is going and staying in a campground. Gives me access to 4 counties at a time without driving, all the way back and forth. But it is what it is. I particularly agree with all of the things going on, but I respect everybody's right to protect themselves as they see proper. Hi, Rick. And so therefore, we made adjustments to our campaign, and this was one of the biggest adjustments, and I have as great appreciation for each of you that give me your evening as you who have thanked me for doing this do. So again, thank you as well. So we've got enough folks on. I'm not going to start with a particular agenda tonight. I'm going to keep wandering through my thoughts of thanks and telling you what I did and what I've got coming up, and until I start seeing questions. So tomorrow I'm going up to Dallas County. I've got 2 different meetings up in Dallas County. Next week I have signed up for some classes from the Heritage Foundation, and I'm going to spend 2 days taking classes from them on a range of topics, and I look forward to that. And has anybody seen any businesses opening up under the new guidelines, the things that our state has put out? I know that a couple of business owners here where I live are not, restaurants specifically, are not going to open yet. They're still analyzing to see what they have to do to implement the guidelines and yet still open their interior restaurants. So I got 2 questions, and I'm going to try to field both of them real quick. The first one is, why am I running for office? And my number one reason for running for office is the condition of our country, in my view, and the far shift to the left, and the constant reach across the aisle compromise that's always to the left and has been for pushing 100 years. And so, over a year ago, way back in, really Christmas of 18, January of 19, I was complaining about the politics and decided that it was time for me to do something about the politics as opposed to just complain about it. And so I decided that running for Congress was the right answer. Looking at my experiences in problem solving at pretty senior levels, I think it's the right place for me to go as a servant of the people and a servant of the nation to solve problems at the federal level for you. And one of the things that I will push for hard is solving problems at the federal level that belong to the federal government constitutionally. And if they don't, I will push equally hard to get those other topics back into the state. I was talking to a fellow today who was actually a Democrat, and I told him that before we even argue about a particular policy, why don't we agree on whether it's a federal issue or a state issue, and then we can decide, how we want our state to address it. Because a lot of the topics that we talk about don't belong at the federal level. The next question is relative to beating Cindy Axne. That's my target. That is probably the number 2 reason why I decided to run. Caveing out on that last topic, that when this state allowed 2 of our Republican seats to go to the Democratic Party, and far left Democrat Party, really, very disappointed me as a fellow who spent his life moving around the world and decided to retire in Iowa because it was a conservative state in my view, and a lot of other reasons. I like the people, I like the land. We've talked about that with a lot of folks. My wife and I, our family is military. We're spread out across the country, and so we decided to stay in this state that we had grown to love. And again, I want to take action against something that I'm complaining about. And my target was to make sure that we replaced Cindy with a conservative. Can I beat her? Absolutely. There's no doubt. There's such a clear difference, and I have to believe, there is registered Republicans, registered Independents, registered Democrats in this district, almost an equal split of a third. And folks want to blame the last election on Polk County or the Libertarians. It's just not accurate. There are several reasons why we lost this seat. One was energy. One was embracing America First agenda, and another was bringing folks to the poll and convincing them, which side had the better arguments. I am confident that I will demonstrate for you the energy to win this election. I will bring in the independents, and I'll even bring some of the Democrats to the table as I talk to them about the rightness of this federal republic, the God-given freedoms that this country was founded on, that are articulated in our Declaration and codified and supposed to be protected by our Constitution. And as I articulate that, I will bring in Democrats as well. But my target will be the Republicans and the independents, and even our libertarian friends, of which there are more than enough to counter the registered Democrats in the area. And while Polk County is the most populous, this is another mistake I think that is made. It is not the most important. Each of these 16 counties, every individual in this district is just as important. And I will demonstrate to these folks every day between now and the election, and certainly as you allow me to serve you in Congress. And we will get folks to polls who are interested in this campaign, not just getting out to vote, to vote R or vote D, but we are going to bring folks to the polls that are interested in this campaign and doing right by the people of this district relative to the national level position I'm asking you to allow me to serve you in. Hey, sir, one of my former bosses on there. Thank you, sir. You know, there are several tasks in my A drawer right now that I want to address. The first one, at least up to this point, has been national security, and that is a balance between stopping the illegal immigration and separating illegal entry into this country from immigration. And when you separate those two thoughts, and you talk about the righteousness of a sovereign nation, we've got to secure our southern border. That's a national security issue from a health point of view, from an economic point of view, from a jobs point of view. It's hugely important, and that's probably right there on the top. But equally with that, just actually will end up being harder to do. We'll be discussing balanced budget and trying to work on that other part that I see as a long-range national issue, the annual deficit and the long-term debt. And the only way we can get after that, and sir, you know, we did this together with the budget stuff at a different level, but it's the same concept. And we're gonna balance. We've got to balance the budget. So I've got to get folks in the Congress interested in that, and that's going to be a several-year project. Yeah, listen, I absolutely don't agree with that. But here's the thing. So the point is that the big box businesses and others are requiring customers to wear masks. Here's where I fall on this topic in general. The government at the federal and the state level has been wrong in any place where they have told us what to do. It is not their place, I don't believe. And so I do not believe we should be required. And I know our governor put out guidance Monday, and I thought that was a good way to approach it. My concern, however, is the questions that she's being asked is how she's going to enforce the guidance. Well, enforced guidance isn't guidance. And that's where we are allowing the government to go too far into the overreach mode, and that needs to be stopped. Now, Whitney, that being said, however, if a store itself, any store, any big box store or the little businesses, when they get to start opening the doors, they have the right to say what the requirements are of customers coming onto their property to shop. And, you know, I'm not going to wear the mask, and therefore I won't shop in the big business or the box store that says I have to put a mask on to come in. And quite frankly, they told me my child couldn't come in with me. I still would not, I would no longer I would no longer be a customer of that particular business. I would go somewhere else to find what I needed. That's another reason why the local stores need to get open so that the big box stores can't control this topic and put us in a position where we're choosing to either not get stuff or use their stores. I hope that's clear for you, Whitney. I think it's absolutely wrong, but I'll defend their right to do that as long as the government's not making them do it, and then I will choose not to patron them. Yeah, Lenny, I don't think any business should be required to be closed. So I don't agree with that statement, and but that is the rules we're under, and the rules that they're following, so that they don't risk their business. But of course, now their businesses are being risked economically. I sure hope all the businesses open up soon, very soon. It is well time to get everything open back up and allow folks to choose to protect themselves. Look, I absolutely understand that the COVID virus is real. It doesn't matter where it came from. We can debate that at another time. I don't know which story I believe as to where it came. It doesn't matter. There's a virus. Is the virus worse than other viruses? I don't know. The statistics, the data that we see doesn't seem to bear that out for me. But I do know this. We should not be giving up our freedom so easily to the government and locking ourselves in. And so I would prefer true guidance, not enforced guidance, that would be put out, and we could choose to adhere or not adhere to that guidance, and we should respect each other's right to protect ourselves. So keep some distance is fine. Certainly, if you got a cold and you go out, you should wear a mask. But businesses should absolutely not be shut down, whether they're serving food or not. And I guess a thought on the on the virus. There appears to be clear data on who is at risk and who isn't. My parents are in at-risk category. I encourage them to protect themselves and not go out any more than they have to. They're too far away for me to grocery shop for them. But if you're at risk and you need to open your business, you ought to be doing that. Okay, I can't see that one. Yeah, Bill, that's a great question. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know that I have an answer to thousands of page-long legislation, but I certainly would. Hopefully that'll be a place where my military experience will be very helpful, because I was trained to condense things down and write guidance that would start in draft form, and we would try to limit it down quite a bit. Thank you. Try to limit it down quite a bit so that we would have a reasonable expectation that the entire team, whether the team was 5 people or several thousand, that they would all read it and be able to follow it. So I am not a fan of it, but I can't sit here and tell you I have an answer to federal level on how to reduce the thousands of pages. So the question now is, do you support whoever that is, Meckler? I didn't get my glass. Mark Meckler, that's nationwide effort to call for a convention states, and absolutely not. And Sandy, I know that you're not putting it out from this perspective, but I know that there's some folks out there saying that I support the convention of states, and that is absolutely not true. I've never said that to anybody, and well, I'll leave that there. So here's what I believe on the Convention of States. The Constitution is very clear. I support our Constitution. I have sworn to defend the entire Constitution my entire life, and my oath, whether I take this next oath or not, isn't going to leave. It's not going to change, and I'm going to defend the Constitution. It is a constitutional right for the states to meet in convention. That being said, it is not your elected U.S. congressman or senator's job to have a position on a convention of states. That decision for us belongs to Iowa. And as an Iowan, I share the same concerns that many of the folks who have questioned this convention of states thing, many who denounce the convention of states, I have the same questions and concerns they do. How would the agenda be placed? Is the agenda going to be locked in? Or is it going to be flexible where it can change at the last minute? What's going to be on the agenda? How are the delegates going to be selected? These are all valid concerns. I share each and every one of them. And as an Iowan, if those things weren't laid out adequately and clearly for us, then I would join anybody in encouraging our state legislators and our state senators to vote against it, and our governor not to support it. The question that you've asked about a nationwide call for a convention of states, to me, is largely irrelevant and easy to say, no, of course I don't support that, because the decision to participate in a convention of states belongs to Iowa. It doesn't belong to the Republican Party at the national level or the state level. It doesn't belong to your U.S. senators and your U.S. congressmen. It belongs to Iowa. And so if our state goes down there, you've heard me talk about it, and you've heard my concerns. And as I am equally concerned with, delegate choice, and especially the agenda being able to be moved and not voted on by the people of the state and locked in, that would be a huge vote of no on my part. Sandy, please let me know if that's clear, or if there's any other questions that you think would help the folks understand my position on of states. Hey, Joe. Yeah, the question is how I feel about Congress adding earmarks to bills, and should bills be one item only. I can tell you emphatically that on an emergency bill, it should be one item only. I'm not a big fan of earmarks at all. There might be some room for negotiating on earmarks that are of a similar topic to a particular bill when the bill is going through the normal processes. But earmarks that have nothing to do with the topic are, in my mind, not acceptable. And when there's an emergency like COVID thing, absolutely, absolutely emphatically should be one item only. And that's the way that those things ought to be addressed and funded. Yeah, Jeff, so the question is, what am I doing to make sure I stay out in front and keep the information flowing? And, so that's why I'm doing these Facebook Lives. I have a standing offer out there for anyone that wants me to come down and see them and talk to them. I would ask when I do that I can get a photo and we can do a Facebook, picture and comment on it, and a Twitter picture and comment. And otherwise, I'm encouraging everybody to help, to talk about the campaign, to hand out the information cards, give folks my phone number, 515-850-8100. And, I would rather talk to folks and communicate to you through this means than stop in places, get a quick photo op and put that up. So that's what I'm trying to do. It is a bit of a challenge under these conditions, but we'll get it done. And, I got invited to Mount Air this morning, and then I called a supporter in Crescent and arranged that. So I was able to get to 2 towns today. And again, I've got an invitation. So invitations are powerful. Please direct message me or call me or text me and let me know if you have an opportunity for me to come to your area and talk to folks. And, we've got a couple of weeks sprint here, and I'm up for the task. Yeah, and I kind of just talked through what you can do to help me, Whitney. Thank you for asking that. But that's the answer, is for us to beat the political machine, the political class that is telling us, telling us who the candidate needs to be. I just don't agree with that. We, the people of this district, should be telling the party who the candidate needs to be. And so, in order to beat that machine, with the little resources that we have, that's what I'm asking you to do. Call your friends and neighbors, call your family, ask them to look at my campaign, and ask them to look at both campaigns. I want these folks to put me in office for them. But more importantly to me is that you've looked at both candidates and you've selected the right person to represent you this fall to defeat the incumbent, the Democrats in the seat, and get to Washington and take conservative values to Washington and serve you. Servant of the people, not a politician that wants to just, listen, I'm not looking for another career. I'm looking to serve you and to serve our nation. So again, as we can multiply the folks who are talking about the campaign and hand out cards if you have them. I've got plenty. If you want some of my information cards, I will come visit you and pass off cards for you to pass off to your friends. I've got some new ones now that are much less writing on them. They look like a door hanger, but under current conditions, we can't do door hanging. So folks passing them out and talking about the campaign and encouraging folks to look at the campaigns, look at both campaigns and pick their candidate, and get out, vote in the primary. Get out in the primary. We need to make sure that we, the people, are heard in the primary, and then do it again in the general. Ken Levina is asking me about the debate, and I've offered the debate, challenged the debate. Most of you probably saw the Iowa Standard article the other day, so you know how the other team's candidate and campaign feels about the debate. So that's okay. That's the way they want to play it. You should draw your conclusion from that. There is a clear difference in the primary, in my opinion. A career politician, a career soldier. And somebody else said today, well, just being a veteran, that doesn't mean he needs to elect. I agree with that. I don't want you to elect me because I'm a veteran. I want you to elect me because you've looked at my background and you can see, and you agree that I have the experiences to solve problems at the level that I'm asking you to let me serve. That you agree that what I'm telling you, that my experience, my background shows you that I have the personality and my convictions to get after this position on your behalf. I will tell you where I see on a position. I will not take a middle of the road stance on something. When I tell you that I support the Constitution and that I will defend your Second Amendment, I will not support or co-sponsor a red flag law, and no matter who asked me to do it. Even if the president asked me to do it, if the Speaker of the House asked me to do it, if the NRA asked me to do it, I tell them no, that violates our constitutional rights. It violates probably 4 or 5 of the first 10 Bill of Rights. When I tell you that I'm pro-life, I am unequivocally pro-life, and do not accept the idea as a culture we're allowing that evil to creep into our society to eliminate or end the life of a preborn child. Grounds that it's inconvenient, it's economically inconvenient, it's personally, whatever the reasons are, or whatever the circumstances are of conception. And so that being said, I am equally concerned with the health of the mother, and we should, as pro-life folks, we should be equally concerned with the life of the mother and the life of the born child. And in the end, if the mother is incapable mentally or physically of caring for that child, then we should accept that we owe a path of decision, a path of life for that preborn child. And that's one of the very few welfare type of things, if you want to call that welfare, that I would support at the federal level, because I think this country needs to end the killing of born children. So very clear differences even in the primary, and very even more stark differences when you get to the general, and why I'm asking folks to consider me. Hey, Joe. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. I'm catching up, guys. Well, listen, Greg. So that was a long question. I'm not going to read that one because it's very long. But I agree with you, and that's one of the reasons why I'm a term limits guy, and that gets me a lot of pushback from the party, and I understand that. I don't expect to agree with everybody on everything, but I absolutely agree with you. And I promise you this: listen, if you don't select me on June 2nd or between now and June 2nd, I'll be a little disappointed, and my life will go on. My life does not revolve around this particular thing. I just think it's important at this time, and I want to prove to you that I'm the right guy at the right time to go to Washington and do this for you. And I will not be focused on my next election when you send me there. I will not be focused on elections. Be focused on problem solving and decision making at the federal level. I'll read the rest of that later. Yeah, I don't know if he's been told or not, but from his perspective, it makes sense. Everybody knows his name, so if he if he debates me, he's acknowledging that I'm a competitive candidate out here, and he loses ground. That's unfortunate because it should be about you, not me. Hey, I don't even know if I have the skills to do a debate, but I'll do the debate because you deserve that. Short of the debate, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to answer your questions. I'm not going to give you a 20-minute speech, other than, occasionally I will start up front with a introduction again to get my name out there so folks get comfortable with why Bill Schaefer is out here running for this position. But outside of that, I'm not going to give you a 15-minute speech and answer one or two questions. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. We stayed on here for an hour and a half on Tuesday. I was ecstatic with the whole thing and the opportunity to answer you, and we'll keep trying to do that. It's the same answer about how you help me. If you know folks in Iowa, talk to them, ask them to look at the campaign. If you're in Iowa District 3, if you're in Iowa District 3, again, call us. I'm going to put in a plug for signs. We've got yard signs. We've got a lot out, and I've still got some more on hand. I've got some 3 foot by 4 foot one. My wife has been size, and my wife's been painting those. And then we got some of the regular yard signs, and I have hand cards to hand out. And I'd be happy to either deliver them personally or get one of my mates to deliver them where I can. COC could easily get hijacked. I assume that means Convention of States. Listen, I got that, but anything can get hijacked. So that part, it's a concern. It goes back to, again, inside of our state, what would be the rules we would be playing on, and as long as we're not happy with them, then we should vote against our state joining the Convention of States. Sandy, I'm going to make that clear. Absolutely do not support Mark Meckler or any other particular organization. I have no association with any Convention of States group, and have no interest in anybody outside of Iowa trying to influence Iowa's decision to participate in such a thing. Absolutely do not support Mark Meckler's Convention of States effort. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't know who told you that. I am not bilingual. I tried a couple of times in a couple of countries, and I struggled around. I got to the point where I could order a beer and survive, and that was about it. I think the answer to that question. So, what's my main issue differences with David Young? I guess the top ones. I am a full supporter of the America First agenda. I am a true conservative. I will not support red flag laws. I will absolutely work to defund organizations that are associated with abortion, and at the federal level, we should not be allowing those tax dollars to be used there. And I will work very hard to get the border secure with a wall and the resources for the patrol. But in addition to that, I will work hard to turn off incentives, whether they are welfare, medical, education, the incentives, birthright citizenship, the incentives to come across the border and enter this country and get in our system that is designed to help Americans. I will work hard to turn that off, and that includes employment. So hopefully that was enough particular issues for you. I could probably go through some more. I am not going to mail my absentee ballot application. Are you? Yeah. Listen, I'm not. I gotta hope. I have used absentee ballot my whole life being a soldier. I have voted president in every election up till 16 via mail. So I've depended on it. I'm not quite as against it. I much prefer in-person voting. I am very much for voter ID and ensuring that we clean up our voting rolls as we can through those means. But I don't have a big issue, especially with our governor and our secretary of state emphasize vote by mail if you want to because of the virus. I'm not going to be against it. Hi, Paul. Thanks for being on. Thank you, Jeff. Sandy, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I think that was fortuitous for me that you asked that question. I'm considering making a video on it this weekend, similar to the other videos you've seen, and get that done. I'll get it posted on the YouTube channel. And I'm sorry, that's the Convention of States topics, teammates. And we'll get it posted on the YouTube channel, and I'll attach that to one of my Facebook Live requests for next week. No, do you support hate crimes towards the gay community? I absolutely do not. I believe that every human being should be treated with dignity and respect in all regards. I'm not a big fan of the term hate crime, because as far as I'm concerned, if you commit a crime against me or my daughter or you or the girl down the street, you hate. You have committed an act of hate. Adding that word to it, I don't think necessarily helps us as a society. But clearly, I absolutely do not support crime because somebody is, whether it's gay or a skin color or you pick the topic. What I don't like is politicians putting people into groups that can be pitted against them. And that's my concern when we create these groups and then we say, well, this group doesn't like that group. But no, emphatically do not support hate crimes against anybody, and believe very strongly that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, and that's the way we should treat each other. Wade, thank you, buddy. Yeah, so a statement was just made that a convention of states would most likely weaken the Constitution and remove our rights, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's a risk. If you get, but it's, to me, it's this. Well, I'm sorry. Let me finish my sentence. If you can get enough states to agree on topics that every one of us would fight tooth and nail to prevent, for example, getting rid of the Electoral College. If that was on a agenda for the Convention of States, you would find no stronger fighter against that. The Electoral College is what makes our federal republic work, and it causes the balance between the states to have representation properly. So, but the comment you're making that would weaken the Constitution, you have that same risk at federal level, because the Convention of States has the same authorities that the Congress does to make an amendment to the Constitution, right? And so if we elect the wrong people to the House of Representatives and to the Senate, we run the same risk of weakening our rights. And in my opinion, we've seen that happen. We've been seeing that happen by federal overreach and our federal government being involved in stuff that they shouldn't be involved in. And even under these current conditions with the directives coming out and what we can't do. So again, I concur with the concerns for convention of states and would fight against it if those concerns weren't clearly articulated and cleared up by our state. I would join every one of you in fighting against it internally to Iowa. But our first concern should be that same problem, weakening the Constitution by the decisions potentially made by weak representatives and weak senators at the federal level. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, John. Awesome. There we go. There's some flyers going out in Creston. Thanks, team. Would you push for very strict voter fraud laws to discourage it? And that would include elected officials. Yeah, there's a balance there, though, Lenny, because the voting belongs to the state. We do not want the federal government telling Iowa how to get the voting done. So I think the answer to your question is fraud laws for voter fraud at the state level first, and then certainly if elected officials and government workers are participating in it, then that would clearly require some federal level legislation to handle those in federal office that might be participating in fraudulent activities. We're trying to get out as much as we can. It's all good. So if you have a letter of endorsement we can sign, is the best way we can let you know. Listen, I would offer just let me know personally, either in writing, either in by text message or a Facebook message that you want to be counted as officially endorsing, and I will put I'll put a letter together of my own. I've got about a half a dozen general officers that have also endorsed me, and put that letter out as soon as I can, and if later we'll put out another one. But I appreciate it. To me, it's a powerful statement. The idea of Iowans just like you and me interested in endorsing the candidate, vice the big name stuff. How are you going to manage working in D.C. and living in? Well, listen, I've said it before. I'm gonna repeat that tonight. I'm interested in going to D.C. I'm willing to do it on your behalf, and so I will, at every opportunity, be back. And when I'm back here, I will be walking the counties, just as I've tried to do in this campaign run. So it'll be a balance. I'll certainly have to be there for the requirements. I don't want to miss any votes. Hopefully we'll make some adjustments there on how votes get tallied, but some votes have to be in person for sure. But I much prefer being at home. Listen, I spent 32 years in the infantry. I spent a lot of time away. A week in the field, 2 weeks in the field, 30 days overseas, 6 months, a year overseas at a time, and I did my job. But I was never happy being away from my family. And so trust me when I tell you, I will find the balance of being back here with my Iowa family. Yeah, statement made that politicians acting laws about speech, labeling it as hate speech. I agree. That's the problem with it, and that's why I don't support the idea of the federal government even censoring the net, even though the internet, Facebook and Twitter and a lot of these platforms are on. there's a clear bias, there's a clear attempt to make it harder on conservatives to articulate what they want to articulate. The answer to that is still not federal government reaching in. For that very reason, because what one person doesn't like doesn't necessarily make it wrong or make them right in list a whole, one to end, what is the end point for what is acceptable and what isn't. And so that should be done by the free market, and hopefully over the time we'll get some conservative platforms built into the system to make it easier for us. But in the meantime, I will not encourage or support laws that limit speech or supposedly create equality in speech, because that term equality in speech is always in the eyes of the beholder. Who's deciding where that lies? So we should not support that, and we shouldn't support it at the state level either. We are weakening our rights. Just look at gun control. Again, that's one of my strong topics. It's in that statement, that is an example of our rights being weakened. This virus is an example of us willingly giving up our freedoms and our rights. And I think it's bad for the long term of the country. It's bad for the long term of the culture. The freedoms that are the generation of this great nation are being lost on a constant basis, and largely because we acquiesce so quickly to what's the federal solution to any particular topic, and it's just not healthy. So in terms of gun control, there's the idea that we're going to control guns in order to defeat evil. Again, murder is evil. Committing a crime is a lesser evil, but an evil. And acquiescing to gun control to supposedly solve evil. You can't fix evil by addressing tools. The same thing with the speech. It's the use of the tool by the person. And so laws have to be designed to deter crime and then punish crime when they're committed. You cannot legislate behavior. The Constitution is only as strong as the people who are staunch in defense of it. I 100% agree, and that's one of the major differences between me and my Republican challenger for the nomination here between now and June 2nd. Is a strong belief. My answer on the Convention of States, I've made it as clear as I can. I do not support that person or anybody else outside of Iowa. The idea of a Convention of States. I do not support compromise on our Constitution. I do not support compromise on the Bill of Rights, especially the Bill of Rights. That needs to be protected. They were written brilliantly, and I promise you that I will do that. If you're federal elections, if you're referring back to the vote, I still think I might be wrong. Somebody correct me. I'm not opposed to being given information and educated, but I still believe the state controls voting. Voting, even at the federal, the voting and the vote tallying belongs to the state. Does anybody? Let me know if somebody thinks that's not correct. I'm fairly confident. Yeah, I agree. The proper use of libel laws that discourage folks from hating on each other will absolutely have to go shooting someday, Deborah. That's I can tell you emphatically, gun control has nothing to do with public safety. Those are just two different issues. Okay. Man, we slowed down a little bit. It's okay. We're getting close to an hour. As we got to be here. Yeah, yeah. No, that's what I was trying to articulate, Paul, and I didn't do a great job. Laws don't, and Rick will probably agree. Laws don't stop crime. They outline the well. First, I think they deter crime. Should be written to deter crime, but the deterrence, the first deterrence, should be, the cultural, the spiritual strength not to do wrong. And then we have man-made that are not designed and not even possible to be designed to stop crime. They outline the punishment, which in turn we hope to be the deterrent. Stops crimes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, Rick, that's correct. We send reps to the final tally. Again, the voting, the poll booths, I forgot the stations, the voting precincts. All of that is controlled in our case by the Secretary of State's office. They put out the guidance and they put out the ballots. They control the delivery of the ballots. They control the ballots coming in. They control the vote count. And then the state sends the delegates to deliver the decision for Iowa. So yeah, I think it's very accurate for me to say that even for elections, the election itself belongs to the state. So what have you done in the military that equates to what a political person does on budgeting? I can, maybe I've done more because I've been in positions in the military where I was what the Army titles an executive officer, and my responsibility was to take the unit budget, forecast it for the next year, and then once it was approved, and forecast it based on my known requirements, the training requirements, and the known deployments that we would have coming up, the maintenance that we need, medical supplies when the units were big enough to have their own medical facilities, all those things, create a forecasted budget, and then the would get approved, and then somewhere around, because the Army works on a fiscal year, starts October 1st, somewhere around September, we would get our budget for the next year, and then I would have to plan that budget out on a monthly basis, not evenly spent, but spent in a sine wave that showed, that acknowledged where the expenses were going to be. If you took a bunch of equipment out to the field, that would increase your maintenance expenses. And then it was my responsibility to make sure that we didn't overspend. You all know the deal. In the government, you're not really supposed to underspend either. So, we ran, and that fellow that asked the question earlier, I worked for him a few years ago, and I ran a budget for him. And that was the job, and the job was to keep the balanced budget balanced and deliver funds to every agency, the religious team and the medical team and the executors that were doing the training or doing the combat training, whatever we were doing. And then I also worked at budgeting at the Pentagon level, where working at the 4-star officer level for all 4 services, I was in charge for 2 years of a team that briefed the Joint Requirements Oversight Council on the budgetary requirements for training all 4 services on an annual basis, inside of that year, moving funds into emerging ideas without going over last year's budget, the budget that we were working under. I've also been in command at the company, battalion, and brigade level, which is just different sizes of Army organizations, different levels of rank. But each of those cases where I had my executive officer that forecasted things for me, that then I'm directly responsible for the execution of that budget. So I think that those experiences will help me as I try to coalesce folks around the idea of balancing budget and providing leadership both in the science of budgeting, the actual math, and the art of budgeting, the distribution of funds, especially when you're short funds. Something that the Congress doesn't understand. In an Army or unit, we never got enough funds to do every good idea we had. So we had to prioritize. That's another piece of that experience. Prioritize everything we possibly could have wanted to do to the benefit of our unit in the next year, from training ideas to morale ideas. And at some point, we fully budgeted the top priorities, the combat training stuff. We partially funded other good ideas so that we could get 75 or 80% of two good ideas instead of 100% of one and none of another. At one point, there's a red line drawn, and anything below that line in the Army, we call it an unfunded requirement. At the federal level that you're asking me, I believe what you'll find is the first answer is that topic doesn't even belong at the federal level, so we can't push that good idea back to the states. And then there might be some room in there for some funded good ideas. I don't know. We'll have to see the numbers on it. But I hope that helps you. I've certainly done budgeting, and I certainly understand the value of taxpayer-funded organizations, because that's what the military is. It is the number one reason why we have a federal government is, national defense, national security, and it is a fund we have to, a funding requirement we have to accept, but it's still taxpayer dollars, and I understood that, and would ask you to believe I took it very seriously where every one of those dollars went. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, listen, I already talked about this strategy to beat Axie. I want to focus on the primary right now. I can and will beat the Democrat in the fall, and I will do that by bringing into our tent that are independents, that are libertarians, and we'll even reel in some Democrats. We'll talk more about that. I will focus on that task on the 3rd. I'm doing some research on it. I'm analyzing it. But unlike my challenger for the Republican nomination, I'm not going to pretend like there's not a primary. I owe you the opportunity to know why I'm the better choice than my opponent in the primary. And I've offered you some of that tonight. You are welcome to call me, look at my videos, look at my website, help me get through the primary, and then we'll move to that task, and we'll get done. Topics that are open for negotiation and some that are not. Which topics are negotiable for you? Well, for example, term limits. I've talked about term limits. I am very big on the idea of career politicians after the country, but the number of terms. I've used a particular number out there just to give folks a point for where I am, but I think that's absolutely negotiable, so that we can agree what is the right amount of time for somebody to go into Congress, with the assumption that potentially they would go from a House seat and then want to run for Senate. And so we got to keep those two things in mind. But that's an example of what is potentially negotiable with me. When you look at the border security is not negotiable. How we deal with folks that are currently in the country that that some people want to point at, well, there's good people here, maybe, but they still break law, and but we have proven in history that we can't make a decision on them without securing the border. We did that in the 80s, and it failed us miserably, and here we are now in 2020 with that problem being exasperated. So securing the border, resourcing the border, shutting off the incentives, not negotiable to me. Once we achieve that task, we can negotiate on what to do with the folks that are here based on what status that they're in, whether they committed crimes and that kind of stuff. So there's two examples. Yeah, we're going to keep it. Thank you, John. Folks like you give me no doubt that we're going to get this thing done. And there are folks in every county right now that, volunteers. I said last week, and I'll repeat that right now when I have an opportunity. When I tell you something, it's factual. It's not made up. It's not. It's not in the. It's not in the middle. This is a grassroots campaign. There's no DC in my campaign. There is no big party money in my campaign, and I have no paid staff. I've got a very small staff of volunteers that are very close to me, and now guys like John that just poked up there, and Mike and Preston, and Day and Ringgold, and I could name all 16 counties as I work my way through our district, volunteering to put out the information and help me get the word out. So thank each and every one of you for your help, and I look forward to talking to all of you over the next couple of weeks and on the 3rd of June when we win this thing. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, Ricky. Most crimes start and stop with respecting each other. Absolutely right. And while I understand the position of an individual, when they're targeted for being what they are, why that's a hate crime toward what they believe they are. In that particular case, the question was asked about the gay community. And but hate is hate. If you commit a crime, you're committing a evil. I mean, evil comes in different levels, I guess. But if we respect each other, if we start with respecting each other, that in and of itself would reduce crime quite a bit. Kind of like shut the border, and then we can respect each other. We can respect our nation and legal immigrants, and those can respect us by not violating our sovereign border. Absolutely, we got to beat the Republican challenger first, and that's okay because these folks on here are going to get it done. Yeah, our students are being taught that feelings matter the most. Big problem for them later in life. Absolutely. There's a lot of concerns, and that's an opportunity to talk about education. The first thing we need to do is get the federal government out of the education business. I talked about it last week, and I'll repeat that just quickly. That maybe the federal government has a role in the forecasting of the national needs over time, like a 5-year forecast, putting out guidance to the states about what those needs be, and push education back into private schools and state schools, and let those schools cater to the customer. The customer is the parents and the students, and otherwise, who should be paying the bills, not the federal government. Get the federal government out. If we do that problem, I think, will start to change, because most of the teachers are our friends and family, our neighbors, and many of them would, I think, agree with a stronger way of teaching self-reliance if they weren't being required to teach certain things by a system that withholds money unless they do the bidding of the politicians. Well, I'm going to do the bidding of the politicians. Let's at least get them closer to home so we can reach out and touch them, either at the county or the state level. As a candidate, what's the most important thing the party can do to help you? Well, my answer to that is I'm not important. You're important. Every one of you out there in District 3. And in my view, the party is failing you, not offering you the opportunity to see both candidates, or if there was 8 candidates, it's better how many candidates. I mean, there's 6 up in District 4. There's three or so over in District 2, I think. That's what the party ought to be doing. They ought to be making sure that each and every one of you in District 3, all 176,000 registered Republicans, frankly, the 170-some thousand registered independents, should all be getting information on both of these candidates and encouraged to vote in the primary. I would ask you to consider this question. Why don't you hear and get out the vote campaign for the primary? I gotta get some glasses for this one. How did you deal with differing ideas, personalities, and orders from above and needs from below? The chain of command crunch. How did you develop the culture of your team? Yeah, that's a challenge. Certainly a challenge, and that's why I've talked a couple of times now about the science of leadership and the art of leadership. And I think the art of leadership is lost on a lot of folks. One of the first you got to remember is you're a team of teams. You're that guy above you who creates challenges because he's got a different personality than you and different ideas. You're on his team, and your entire team is on his team. And so, and then of course you're going to have folks below you that have their own ideas, and they're going to agree with your ideas all the time. So the best thing, in my view, is to keep an open door, and that's not figuratively. That's literally. If you notice, I put my phone number out freely. If you call that number, and I was called twice today. If you call that number, you're going to get me. If you call my best friend and campaign manager, Steve Baker, or my wife, Robin, or anybody on my team, you're going to get their idea. They'll make it clear when they're telling you what they know about me. And if you want to get to me through them, you'll get to me. And so that's part of it, is making sure everybody on your team has access to giving you the ideas, and then build their trust through execution. Your words don't matter as much as your execution. And so in execution, I have the opportunity to demonstrate to you that everything I say is in fact true. Then you'll gain the confidence that I will continue to represent you in the future. So that's kind of a long answer to that question, but it is leadership is complex. One of the things that I believe my experience will help me with a lot at the federal level is, even though a small sampling, teams of up to 5,000 people, or work for my boss who had a team of 20,000 people, when you make decisions based on emotion, and the emotion of one or two people or a small group, you're largely making a mistake, because emotional decisions for a large group of people don't work out very well. Again, I keep using that border example, but the emotional pitch that there are good people crossing the border that need help or need a better life, that's a valid statement. I am passionate or compassionate toward their needs, but the answer isn't to make a federal level decision, a national level decision, to those that are making that emotional pitch at the expense of 350 million people that are in fact Americans. So I hope that example helps you with that answer, Whitney, but thank you for the question. Term limits, I'm not sure I understand the question. Limit the number of offices? You'll have to help me with that question. Do term limits also limit the number of offices? Yeah, I think school vouchers is the right answer, and parents that are willing to provide the resources to move their kids to schools that are quote unquote district ought to have the ability to do that. That would absolutely increase competition, and it would push education responsibilities back in the parents' court, and that's a mistake we're making culture. That's a great statement. So that would also, I think, change the culture of. It appears to me right now that we rely, we rely on educators for the education of our children, and that's just not the right answer. As far as I'm concerned, education belongs to parents, and it's a balance between parents, children, and teachers, but the majority of it belongs to parents and the child. And then as the child moves from 1-year-old to 18, the balance shifts to the child. And by the time they're 18, they ought to realize that the vast majority of their education now belongs to them. And hopefully they are at that point confident enough to still rely on their parents and rely on professional teachers that do a great job. But that's kind of how I see that. That politics is about the voter, not the candidate. Absolutely, and I want to prove that to you through my execution. Well, thank you for asking, and I'll take anybody's. Thanks, Lenny. I'll take anybody's question on any topic. I don't know something about everything, and but I can tell you, my plan, my intent, my purpose is to one, demonstrate to you where I believe a topic does or does not belong at the federal level, and also demonstrate to you that I'm willing to learn and capable of learning what I need to know on any topic to serve you properly at the federal level. I expect to, oh, thank you, Paul. I'll get to that in just a second. I expect, as you put me in this office, I expect to have particular experts that are willing to talk to me and continue to educate me. And I'm talking about, again, we the people, you the people, the farmer that's currently providing me information, the metal worker that's currently providing me information, the farrier that's currently providing me, all these folks, rather than relying on committees or big industries. Like, I'm sure I'll have a relationship with the agricultural folks, but I'm not going to rely totally on them. I want to still have access to my local farmers that are willing to let me, come out, get a ride in their combines for a day and enjoy the outdoors, which is where I'd really rather be anyway. Okay, so the question was clarified to if you do term limits, does it stop running for different offices? No, it would be about total term and time. And so what we end up agreeing on, there would end up being a range between a total amount of service, maybe 12 to 16 years, for example. So somebody runs for the House of Representatives and they get to the into the seat as your congressman, and 4 years into their term, the Senate seat in that state comes open. We should be able to allow that guy to run for that Senate seat, and wins it, potentially serve 2 terms, which would be a total of 16 years. If he's in the House seat for 8 years, and then his Senate seat comes up, so he wins it, for a 4th term, and then he wants to run for a Senate seat in his state, then potentially we limit him to 1 Senate term. And that way we keep the total amount of time of becoming a DC person to 12 to 16 years, I think. Again, that part's negotiable. I need eyes on it so we can get it right. The intent is to return servant leadership to Washington, D.C. and eliminate career politicians. As classy as some of our politicians are, our great Senator Wesley always gets, I get reminded of what a great man he's been, and that's fine. But that's not a good reason for us to leave one person in Washington for 30, 40, 50 years. And of course, I could give you about 15 examples of bad for every one you can give me of good. So that's not really the point. The point is there has to be equally fine people to Senator Grassley in the 3.5 million people in our state. And let one serve for a period of time, and then let's let another one go serve for a period of time. That would be equally as capable, and then it's our job to select him and make sure he knows what we're concerned about. And another thing I'd like you to know about my view on this, as a soldier, we moved every couple of years. We replaced each other. We're trained to do it, and we provide continuity books. That's one thing. We build a series of information from our hand to the guy that replaces us. And then, so for example, if you allow me to go serve you, and I serve 3 or 4 terms, whatever you tell me is the right answer for the congressman, as it's clear that I'm walking away, and you're going to select the guy behind me. And once you select him in the primary to the day that my term ends and his or her starts, I will dedicate some of my time to training that person on the topics and making sure they understand how Washington works and understanding how what topics I'm currently working on that you're concerned with. And then after that takes over, I'll still make myself available for a period of time. They can call me, they can get whatever advice that they want from me so they can then make decisions on your behalf. We as Americans have got to be capable to do that and not acquiesce to the idea that, well, that person's there, they know the system, we better just go with them again. Not good for our culture. So let's take a look at that together and figure out the right way to go. And that's how I see that. Hopefully that made it real clear for you, Paul. I agree, and I think if you look at the words on my web, it's a little clearer than just saying term limits. Term, unfortunately, is the bullet point. But I appreciate you asking me that question. Give me the opportunity. I'll check the website, make sure that's on there. And again, folks, give me input on what you think is the right answer so we can get that mental math correct on the balance between somebody serving in the House and then potentially wanting to move to the Senate. But clearly, I think there's a limit. You serve, 5 terms in the House, then I'm probably not supposed to be running for Senate at that point. But we'll negotiate it and we'll figure out what the right answer is. That's one of the problems. Long-term, same job, a bit of complacency, a bit of becoming in that system. In my opinion, and this is a major difference in my challenger, my opinion has resulted in 100 years of reaching across the aisle to the left on every topic. Listen, I got it. There's negotiations and there's agreements and there's some things that we'll have to compromise on that completely agree with. But we have negotiated to the left too long in this country, and we need to defend our Constitution, and we need to preserve this federal republic, constitutional federal republic, not democracy at the federal level. Yeah, I had heard that the party was going to eliminate term limits from the form. I don't know if that happened or not. I hope not. I think it's an important issue, and I can tell you my walking through many of your towns last fall and this spring before shutdown stuff, and talking to folks at guns and state fair, not state fairs, county fairs, and other places. I believe it's about an 80% for and 20% against term limits and term limit in our district of the people of Iowa, District 3. Service limits, I like that. We might change it, Paul. That's a great idea. Yeah, we're gonna Steve and I are gonna look at that tomorrow, and we're gonna make that adjustment. I probably won't change the times I have on there right now, although I kind of think they're not right. I think I've got 3 House, 2 Senate until I get some feedback from you all, so I can figure out what's the right thing to put in there. Service limits that's awesome. Friends, listen, we're at an hour and 20. I really appreciate all your time. I think hope all of you had your beverage of choice for the night. I'm going to go get after my beverage of choice, which is either beer or water. I think it'll be beer tonight. And I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless all of you. God bless the United States. And for those of you that asked, thank you for asking how to help. And please help me get after this and the political machine between now and the 2nd of June. I'm going to check out right now. Thanks, team.